What are the commonalities among leaders who sustain excellence over an extended period of time?
The reason why I like watching your brother, and I'm 57 years old. I like sports and everything, but I think their demographic is probably a little younger than me. But they're so real.
Yeah.
And it made me talk. My wife and I were talking about this because she was watching it with me too. And I was going, these guys are great, aren't they? But it's because they really and they kind of talk to each other that way too.
It's
and
funny.
So,
I'm glad you like it. There's like this little, it's not really little anymore. It's this certain section of the internet that seems to be into their work. I'm so happy that it's going well, because post NFL life, it's hard to kind of figure out what you're going to do.
yeah.
And maybe we'll even get into it with some of this working genius stuff, but AJ and Pat seem to go so well together because they're just so different. Their personalities are so wildly different. So it's awesome to see how they interact. And I've gotten to spend time. We went to Lake Tahoe this year together. He plays in this celebrity golf tournament, and we've gone every year. And this was Pat's first year. He was not Pat McAfee, I know Pat Lencioni, but he was nice enough to kind of give us a ride out there on his plane, and we stayed in a nice home together for the week. Him and he brought some of the guys from the show. And the interactions literally with not only AJ and Pat, but all the other guys who are a part of the show are the exact same.
And you can tell.
Yes.
I think that authenticity, and I know that's a word that gets used a lot, is the new currency.
Yeah.
And what's funny is they talk about sports and football, and that's not my life.
Yeah.
But I still it's like Dave Ramsey is a friend of mine,
Yep. Yeah.
And I don't really love everything about personal finance. I don't need to talk about that, but I love the way he interacts with people.
Yeah.
And there's something about watching people authentically, genuinely give each other advice and take things apart and talk about things that is naturally a draw. And here's the other thing about your brother. He won't say anything if he doesn't have anything to say.
For sure.
That is so rare in the world.
Yeah. He gets it's funny. We talk about this privately too, and he says that on the show. He gets he'll say it like, I don't have to have an opinion about everything, because there's a lot of things that I don't know about, and I quite frankly don't care about. So in that case, I'm just going to stay quiet. I'm like, yes, we all should probably do that more,
Oh my. It is so anti the TV generation where the talking head just always has to talk.
Yeah.
And you know what else? You know what he did the other day? I love this. They were talking over their guest.
Always.
And he was like, hey, you guys, be quiet. I want to hear what he has to say. And he was totally genuine. He was a little annoyed. And I thought, this is great. This is like sitting around a living room with somebody, brothers who aren't afraid to kind of disagree. So anyway, for whatever it's worth, me and my wife enjoy listening to them. And then last night, my 16-year-old son stayed up with me. And what did we watch? We watched a clip on YouTube of those guys again.
Oh, man.
And I wasn't even interested in what the guest was talking about, but it's just so fun to watch them interact. So,
well,
anyway,
I'll make sure to send this clip to them, because regardless of how big the show gets and how it's amazing for them now that Pat's become like a legitimate employer for a lot of people and really takes care of all of his guys, a lot of loyalty. But I think the reason it works, one, is he is supremely talented, Pat McAfee is, and loves surrounding himself with people that will be real and authentic. Yes. And they're also kind of fearless to just go for it.
I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
But they're fearless, but not unkind.
Right.
And
you should have seen like the people in Tahoe. So this is a celebrity tournament, like Colin Jost and some of the big time celebrities, Justin Timberlake and all these out there. They come up to him and say, I would love to come on your show. Oh, I love what you do. I love what, and he's just like, it's just amazing to see. You could tell he's like super grateful and saying, "Oh my God, thank you so much. I had no idea you even knew I existed. Are you kidding me?" Like, "Oh, Colin, you're far too smart. Your brain's way too big. You could never be on our show." Like stuff like that. Like, it's really funny. It's really cool to see the interactions.
Do you know what, so the root of all sin is pride. The antidote to pride is humility. Humility is the most attractive virtue. And we learn this. Jesus,
if it's real, it's got to be real, though.
Oh, it has to be.
Yeah.
And Jesus, somebody explained this to me one day, was the most attractive human being ever to walk the face of the earth. I mean, he's God and man, but it was because people are drawn to people who are humble. Now, people don't realize humility is not like false modesty, nor is it like in being intimidated by others. Pat McAfee is both. He's hilarious. He'll say difficult things, but it never feels like he's boosting himself.
Right.
And he's not trying to take it out on somebody else, but he's willing to go, "That seems crazy, man. Why would anybody do that?" And you go, "Wait, he really means that." Yeah. And then there's your brother who's not saying something, or when he finally weighs in, it's really thoughtful. And you thought, and it's attractive. I want to sit in the room with those guys.
Yeah.
And just experience that. There's not enough humility and authenticity in the world. So I don't know. I can't believe my wife and I, my 16-year-old son, who would have thought that the former punter and I knew he was a crazy guy when he was a punter, but this is different. And I hope he needs to protect his humility like it's all the value he has in the world.
Yeah.
Because the moment that a person loses that, and we could talk about athletes.
Sure.
There are some athletes that you would think would be really popular that are not right now. And it's because people see through it and they realize it's about them. And so anyway, I just love it. I will pass that on to them if you could.
I will. I'll make sure we clip this and send it to them. It's really neat. But it actually made me think of you. So it would have been easy for you after Five Dysfunctions and all the stuff that you've done. You've kind of, you're still, that book still, I check bestseller list, because it's like for guest ideas. I'm going to say who's written best-selling books. That's one of the things that I do every week. To write a book 100 years ago, it feels like, and it's still every week people are buying it. And so it would be easy for you to say, "I'm kind of a genius. Look at this. This stuff I've done, it sells over and over. Everybody wants it. People are banging down my door to come speak at their event. Too money for me to even do. Everyone's buying my books." The working genius stuff, I know I talk to Cody about the success of that every single day, which blows my mind, by the way, which we'll get into. But how do you stay humble? I mean, what keeps you humble when you have all of these? The whole world is telling you, "Pat, we're kind of like elevating you above us because we're all buying everything you put out."
Well, so there's a few different answers to that, one of which actually ties to working genius. I'll start with that one and just say, everyone has gifts. And people look at me and go, "Wow, that's amazing that you've done that." And I'm like, "No, actually, that was a gift that was given to me. It comes very naturally to me." So for me to claim, if something's a gift, it was given to you. So to claim it as your own would be like looking the gift giver in the face and say, "No, this is me, not you." And so I really think God gave me gifts, and I am thankful that I get to use those in the service of others. Now, the fact that it brings me some attention or admiration is wonderful as long as I realize it's not about me. Because going down that path is empty and dark. So I would say it's my faith, knowing that this is a gift, not something that I deserve. My experience of watching other people lose themselves in lack of humility. And even when you're a kid, when I like tried to make attention on me, ultimately there's this darkness at the end of that. Where does that go? So I think it's my growing up. I grew up pretty poor. We were pretty under noticed, my family. So I didn't have this sense of entitlement. But I am so repulsed by any time when people talk to me and there's this temptation to build yourself up. And I'm like, no, that's my death knell. I can never go there. So it's not like I'm a wonderful person for being humble. It's just like humility is just true. And I am truly no better than anybody else. I just happen to have a few gifts that in this time, Ryan, 150 years ago, if I were born, I would be worthless. They'd be like, okay, somebody just robbed the bank. We got to go get those guys. What's Pat going to do? I don't know. Tell us a story, I guess. I'm terrible. I can't build a house. I can't farm. So I was just born in a time where people liked people thinking about management and leadership and writing stories. And it's a gift, and I'm glad I can use it, but I am no better than anyone else.
What are your greatest gifts? What would you say?
I think, and here's the funny thing too, Ryan, I think sometimes our gifts come through our wounds. Because, I really do believe God brings good things out of difficult situations. And most people who've had a real life know that, like, oh my gosh, some of the biggest challenges are where the biggest blessings came. And so I think that I naturally have the ability, I have an intuition. In Working Genius, we talk about discernment. So my gifts are invention and discernment, which means I love to come up with new ideas. I can't help it. And I'm really good at looking like at 10 ideas and going, those two are good ones and those other ones aren't. I'm good at like recognizing, like, not in a linear way, but like using my intuition to evaluate things. And like everyone who knows me in life will joke and they'll go, I'm a really good guesser. Like people go, well, what do you think that is? And I'll go, I don't know. I think it's this. And they'll go, how did you know? And I'm like, that's one of the things I'm good at. Now, you know what I'm terrible at? I'm terrible at finishing things. I'm terrible at precision. If any kind of work involves precision and doing things really carefully and to the specifications, I am miserable. I'm not good at looking 3, 4. Matt, my son, is great at chess, and he can destroy me because he sees things that I don't see. And at my age, I've learned to celebrate the fact that I'm terrible at things and other people are great at them. And I take joy in that rather than saying, how come I'm not good at that? So I love to golf and I'm terrible. And it is so fun because if I hit a great shot or have a great hole, I feel like Tiger Woods. But when I'm with other people and every one of their shots is great, I'm like just in admiration of that. I don't feel like it detracts from me. Somebody once said that the true definition of humility is to look at a cathedral and take pride in it as though you built it yourself. And so I think that I'm okay with my gifts because I know what I don't have and I celebrate others who do have those. And so that's a long answer to a short question. I hope it makes sense.
Can humility be a learned skill?
Oh, most definitely. It's a virtue. And virtue is all about practicing something, valuing it and practicing. In fact, nobody is naturally humble. Either something happened in their lives that humbled them, or they went down a path where they realized the end game of ego is dark, and they've said that is not the path. So I don't think that no one is naturally humble. We don't come out of the womb that way. We come out of the womb kind of, hey, what about me? And it's through life experiences and either really good examples of other people. And it gets back to what we were talking about before. When you see a genuinely humble person, you're drawn to them. You want to be like them. And getting back to like your brother, I don't, if he never played football, but he was just a guy on a show and he sat there silently when he didn't have anything to say and then weighed in and he didn't have to promote himself, I'd be like, I want to be like that guy. So I'm like the anti-fan. I'm not like, gee, your brother was a professional football player. I'm like, I don't care what he is. I like how he is.
Yeah. I think a lot of that actually, it's cool to meet your son here prior to recording because huge credit needs to be given to our parents who still are huge influences in us to, I think, lead with kindness, others focused, and making and normalizing that. So what I mean by that is you don't know it's special or that it's anything above and beyond if it's normal for you. So if it's normal when your parents are going to, like, let's take it the other end, if they like do drugs, treat people poorly, blame, complain, that becomes normal for you as a kid. And so that's what you probably will do. Versus if your parents work really hard, are very kind, giving, right, humble, that becomes normal for you. And so you're just like, well, that's what I guess we do, right? And so when you go out into the world and you kind of leave the nest, you behave, most people at least, you behave kind of to what's normal to you. And I think that's my mom and my dad, who, again, I just sat next to my mom for 3 hours last night at my daughter's volleyball game. Like, we're still super close. And I think that's what I think about a lot. I'm sure you do too, as a husband and a dad, of like, what am I making? How am I modeling the behavior that I want to see in the world? That's everything to me. That's what it's all about.
It is. And I want to put a little spin on that, because so like you and me both, we want so badly to be good parents.
Yeah.
And so when we make mistakes, or when we have our own issues, we are terrified of how that's going to affect our kids. And a woman, her name is Lisa Branickmeyer, she's just an amazing woman. She said, Pat, you have to realize even your shortcomings shape your children. Because I love that you said that about Matt. Somebody else told me that the other day. They said, when I realized you were a great guy is when I met your son.
Yeah.
And what I want to say is that is so wonderful to hear. But here's the thing. My shortcomings he had to deal with, he's actually now, as a young man, modeling for me the things that I wasn't good at. He's teaching me how to be even more positive. Sometimes he can stop me. We work together and go, you're being kind of negative today. You're being really down on that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am. Because he even sees my shortcomings. And when you see your children do the things you did well, or modeling after you, that's great. But when they actually exceed you in the things you weren't good at, that is like mind blowing. And so
That's
I'm
really
literally cool. Now he still has things to learn from me, and I have things to learn from him. But that's probably one of the most amazing experiences of my life, is admiring my kids for things that they're good at that I wasn't.
What for them? How was it? You're famous in a certain part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm a funky, well-known guy. Like in some places, I'm a rock star. In little places, in most places, I'm not.
How was it for them? How was it for them having Pat Lencioni as their dad?
Well, I'll tell you the honest truth. I think that it was good in some cases and bad in some cases.
Yeah.
And it was confusing in some cases too. But I never wanted them to feel like I thought I was important, but I wanted them to experience the benefits of it. And I whiffed on that sometimes. I think they were kind of like oftentimes guarded against it. And then I'd go someplace and people would know me and they'd go, what's the deal? What was that guy talking about? Oh, he reads my books and saw me. And they're like, you're kidding. And it was like Aaron Rodgers read one of my books. The year that the Packers turned around their season, they were doing terrible. And they asked him after the season, I don't know Aaron Rodgers. And he said, they asked him how he turned the season around. He goes, well, I read this book, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. And my kids are like, wait, no. And they're like, I haven't even read that book. And so I think for them, it was kind of weird, because there were times it was good because they had access to certain things. And there were times too, when I think, I have a son right now who's 20 and he goes to Auburn, great kid. He is, for the first time, away from me and away from the family. Everyone that knows him there knows him just for him. He's rediscovering that the reason why people love him is not because of who his older brothers or his dad is. It's for him. So there's good news and bad news. I'm sure if you talk to, I can't imagine what it's like to be Tom Brady's son, or, because they're wondering, like, is this about me or is it about him? So sometimes I wish I had been an unknown office worker someplace, so none of that would have affected them. But in any case, I love talking to you about this.
It's pretty cool.
I forget we're recording a podcast here. Huh? I feel like I'm
I'll publicly say, man, just how much I love you and appreciate you. I really mean that, because of I sent you a text, like, I forget when it was, a couple months ago, said like, hey man, I'm really thinking through how to build this business. And I think you called me in 3 minutes after that. And then Cody and I set up a call, your COO. We spoke for 90 minutes the next day with, there's nothing in it for you. You're just doing it because you're a genuine good guy, and same with the people on your team. And I think that should be recognized. That should be acknowledged publicly, because you know what it does, Pat, that I think is so cool? It inspires me to do the same for other people. Not only one, but like A lot. I got a call from a kid who's a senior in college, and he's thinking about what he wants to do. He's got his own little podcast and he's doing other things. And I was like, what, how did Pat treat me when I've made these calls? Like, I'd like to try to do that for him. And so, like, call him immediately, talk through everything, invite him to this little event that I'm doing, like, for free, obviously, and all these things. And it just, like, the cool thing about it is I know I'm not the only one you do that for, obviously, but it has this, like, this ripple effect where it inspires other people to want to help others too, because they're like, what? So I just think it's a neat thing to talk about, and maybe us sharing that, or me sharing that, will make other people want to do it too, because they hear Pat Lencioni does it.
Dave Ramsey was the guy who's done that for me.
Really?
It's like I could never understand why. It's like, and he just liked me and he wanted to help me, and he just offers that, and I was like, wow, this is, and he really cares. And so, and that, I think there's, when you genuinely care for somebody, like I don't look very often, but if I'm really bored and I'm on an airplane and I have Wi-Fi, I'm like, what should I do? Oh, I'll see how my podcast is doing. And I remember recently I looked it up, and I think your podcast was ahead of mine, or really up close to mine. And I was like, so happy, like, that's so great. He's doing fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's fun when somebody, like, I love it when, like, a rookie comes in and his second year takes over the team, and the guy that's been supplanted, but now is like rooting for the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is like, I love that guy. Like, I wonder what Adam Thielen, it seems like he's really happy for Justin Jefferson.
It does.
That's so cool.
It is, man.
It makes me love Adam Thielen more.
It doesn't, and it also makes me think, if I was placing a bet on a person of how they're going to be for the rest of their life, I would place a bet on a guy like Adam Thielen, who seems, I mean, I don't know him either, genuinely excited for the young guy who's taking over the league. So I those are the people that I would bet on, that get genuinely pumped, because I think when we're building our own kind of board of advisors, the people we surround ourselves with, one of the key attributes I think in those people is that you are both genuinely rooting for each other. Like, genuinely, not like fake clap, but like you're there for them when they mess up, and you're like, no judgment zone. Hey man, you can call me. Oh, I really stepped in it. This was a stupid thing I did. I got you. It's okay. And then when, the book hits the list, you're the first one texting and calling them saying, dude, that was awesome. And you're genuinely excited for them. I think that's the way we should be.
Absolutely. And I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg. I feel like that's how we should be, but it's the people that it's easy to do that with. It's almost an indication of their genuineness.
Yeah.
Because there are other people I've met that are kind of phony or competitive. I don't like when people are competing with me. I think in life, I love in sports when you're competing,
right? But
not in life. And so when I know somebody's competing with me and they feel threatened by me, it's hard to root for them.
Uh-huh.
And I think I should be better than that, but it's like, it's just not easy. But then other people in life, that you just want them to exceed you. You're like, I would be proud to know that a friend of mine is doing better than me. And it is true. You know what I just realized I should do? I should ask a real fast question. My son happens to be our podcast producer, and he helps with all these. Growing up, being a son of a mildly famous dad, good, bad, indifferent, mix.
Oh, you're asking him right now.
Yeah, he said it was a mix.
A mix. What's the good? What's the bad?
What was the good and the bad? It was weird.
It still is. It's not like you're done, dude. Like you're in the middle of it.
Now he works with me. He knows it's all a farce. He works here. In fact, it's so funny to have your son work here. Just earlier today, we just got in an argument, and we all agreed in the office, if you weren't his dad, that wouldn't have happened. Because like when I'm bad at technology, he gets so frustrated at me. Imagine teaching your grandma how to use the computer. It's just like, oh, and that's how he is with me. And I'm like, I don't understand Instagram versus TikTok. He's like, oh, you're such a dope, Dad. So. But
that shows how close you are. I think we still really make fun of my dad a lot. He knows it, but I think you should start to worry when we stop, because which I have no intention ever to stop making fun of him. But we're on the golf course and we don't make fun of the fact that he's hitting the hybrid from 140, then you got to be concerned if we stop.
I do that too. And I hit it in the middle of the green. They're like, "What'd you use, Dad?" From 100. I'm like, 8 iron. I'm like, you should be using your 56. You should be using your pitching wedge.
Exactly. So I was reading through new book, which is kind of cool to see this come out in book form, because we did a podcast about this a couple years ago, the 6 types of working genius, long before the book was even written. I think it was just the assessment. But
yes,
I'm curious, at the very beginning, I see fable style, which I think we love about you. Jeremiah Octavian Brooks, J-O-B. Talk to me about this main character, nicknamed Bull Brooks, but Jeremiah Octavian Brooks, and how this whole thing came about in fable form.
So, I originally started writing fables because the first time I came up with a theory around being a CEO or a leader, somebody said, you should write a book. And then I got depressed and I thought, man, I've bought so many business books that I never finished. And I don't want to write a book and have everybody read the first 3 chapters and put it down. And so I thought, well, I used to be a screenwriter for fun when I got out of college. And so I said, I'm going to use my passion for writing fiction, and I'm going to write a story that hopefully people will read. And I just talked to a guy the other day, and I've talked to so many who say, I don't like to read. Women come up to me and go, my husband hasn't read a book since college, but he reads your books. And because I keep them short, I make it interesting. I want people to turn the page. Maybe that's why Aaron Rodgers read the darn thing, So the point is, I love doing it that way because people learn better from stories. In this story, there is some autobiographical nature to it. Not necessarily, but it's about how I came to this, and I wanted him to be a very flawed character. I wanted us to go, man, he struggled, he screwed up, he had success, he had failure, he frustrated his wife, he frustrated his colleagues, but he was real, and he was pursuing a better understanding of himself and others. And so I think I have a belief, Ryan, that every great story is about people who are real. And the good characters have flaws, and the bad characters even have some redeeming qualities. I'm not a big anti-hero fan. I hate how we're making bad people the main characters and things, But every human being has different sides. And I don't want people to read a book and go, oh, this is about a perfect person. I want them to read a book and go, oh, I can relate to this and relate to the characters. And so Bull Brooks was just a well-meaning guy who a few times in his career thought he was about to go over the edge because he didn't know why he wasn't happy. And
with the working genius assessment coming out well before the book, and for my conversations with Cody, I mean, it seems like it's absolutely taking over in the business world as far as people, the amount of people taking the assessment and implementing it. And I've personally worked and have clients that I work with that I've sent this to after our last podcast, and it's like fully ingrained in their culture, which is really cool.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
How has it been doing it almost backwards, where you built the assessment, you came up with the ideas first, and then writing the book second? Like, how has it been for you guys business wise doing the working genius in the way that you do?
That's a great question. As I think about it right now, I think it made for a much better book.
Yeah, I bet.
Because now that we've had almost 2 years of experience with people using it, we learned through that. Now, thanks be to God. And Matt, my son, was one of the people that helped develop it along with Tracy and Cody. And we learned by working with people and getting their feedback. And more than 250,000 people, in fact, over 300,000 people have done this, and it's growing every day, even before we've really launched the book and the whole program. So we had 2 years, and the face validity of this was so high. And so we have written a better book because it's been based on the first 2 years of experience with this, rather than writing the book and 2 years later going, oh, if we'd known that, we'd have put that in there too. So, and I think it's also been very exciting. We've never been more excited about a book launch in my 25 years of business than this one, because I think we've seen how many people have had their lives changed by this.
What are some ways people have had their lives changed?
Oh, this is my favorite thing in the world to talk about it. I'm so thankful to God for this. So I can't tell you how many people have called us or written to us and said, I was about to fire someone. And I always liked this person, but it looked like they weren't able to be successful. And then they did their working genius, and I looked and I had them in the wrong job. So many people were about to be let go and feel rejected. And their managers just said, wait a second, these are your geniuses. You should be in this job. I'm asking you to do something that you were not intended to do. And so when people have their jobs and their careers saved by their managers better understanding them, that's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, the other thing is we've had people call in and say, I felt guilty. Like we had these pastors from churches call in and say, two guys had this. I felt like a fraud for 25 years being a pastor because I can't write a sermon or a homily. And I thought, I must be a bad pastor. I'm a fake. I shouldn't have gone into this. And then they took this and they said, I don't have wonder or invention as my genius. That's what you need to write a good homily. But this guy that works for me has that. I can ask him to help me. I love counseling and helping people individually, which is a huge part of being a pastor. That's what kind of pastor they were. So what we realize is nobody is perfect. There's NFL coaches that are great at like discipline and motivation and building a family. And there's other coaches that are great at designing a game plan and intellectually going through the draft. Both of them can be fantastic coaches if they realize they need to work in their genius and let people around them fill in their gaps. So there's a lot of people that have felt guilty in their career for not being perfect, and now they understand why.
Let's go through them real quick. Okay. Well, not even real quick. Let's hit them. The 6 types of working genius. Can you walk us through them with a brief description of each of the 6?
Yeah, and I'll try to go fast. And the good news is there are only 6. And these are the 6 activities that running a football team, launching a church, rolling out a new software product, starting a podcast, you need all 6 to do anything in life. And each of us only has 2 that we're really, really great at. So that means we have to have other people around us to do the others. So the first genius is the genius of wonder. There are people in the world who have a God-given ability to ponder things, to notice things, to ask questions, to see potential that's unrealized. They're the person who's constantly saying, is this the best we can do? Do you think there's a better way? Do we really understand our customers? Could this podcast be better? This whole thing came about when my colleague Amy said to me, Pat, why are you like this? Why do you get so frustrated sometimes and then you're so happy other times? And it was her asking that question that began this whole thing. The next, and that's a genius. My wife has this genius. 2 of my sons have this genius. Then the next genius that follows wonder is invention, the genius of coming up with a new idea. So when Amy said, why are you like this? I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. And when people said, wouldn't it be great if there was an idea, a product out there or a book about this? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to figure that out. I naturally wake up every morning, whether it's needed or not, wanting to invent. It's a natural gift. Coming up with something, I don't even like too much context. I like to do it out of nowhere. When somebody says a blank slate or an empty whiteboard, that excites me. Other people, that's not a gift. My son, Matthew, who helped us do this, he said, if you ever ask me to invent, Dad, I'm going to die. It's one of his frustrations. He's not good at it. And that's okay. So invention is the next one. So it kind of starts up at 50,000 feet, your head in the clouds, like, why is the world like this? Invention is down at 40,000 feet. And it's like, hey, I think I figured it out. The next one is the genius of discernment. Discernment are people that have gut feel. And they really they have this, they think in patterns, integratively and intuitively, and they have instincts. You ask them their opinion about something and they're usually right. And it's not based on they're not experts. They don't have data. They just have this way of seeing things and coming to the right decisions. I love to talk about Tracy in our office, who was one of our founders. Tracy, and she said, even as a little kid, her friends would ask her for her advice. I'll say to my wife, where should we go on vacation? Or she'll say, should we refinance the house? Or does this look good? Does this coat and tie look good? And she'll say, ask Tracy. Because if Tracy thinks something's right, we have a really high degree of confident. And you know people like that.
Yep.
And there's other people like, hey, don't ask me. If I'm not an expert on it, let's go find that person. So discernment is the ability to evaluate something. So somebody asks a question, somebody invents an idea. The discerner comes along and gives feedback and says, terrible idea, good idea, pretty good idea, let's tweak it some more. Then comes the genius of galvanizing. That's the fourth one. So it goes WIDG. And the galvanizer is the person who loves to. They get joy and energy from rallying the troops. They love to get things moving, to remind people, to push things forward. They wake up every morning going, I can't wait to have a meeting and to get people in a room and remind them why this is so important. Now, I'm pretty good at that. I don't love doing it every day. For 22 years in my business, I was doing it every day and it was burning me out. And that's how we figured out this model. When Amy said, why are you like that? And I was like, oh my gosh, every day I come to work and I want to invent and discern and I'm galvanizing. So Cody, you know, who you've talked to, we looked at him and we said, he loves to galvanize. So I said, you'll be the chief galvanizing officer. And that doesn't detract from me being the CEO. It allows me, now I have to do it sometimes. None of us get to do things we love all the time, but he wakes up every day wanting to do that. And I gave him permission to be that person. So he's super happy. I'm happier. The company's getting more done because we're working in our genius.
And Cody's your COO, just so.
Yeah, he's our COO. He's the guy that rallies people out in the market. He goes out into the world and gets people excited about what we're doing.
Yep.
And he rallies our troops as well. The next genius is a very important and interesting one that people who have it don't think is a genius. It's the genius of enablement, which people think is a bad word because it's like you don't want to enable a drug addict or an alcoholic to do something, but enabling people to do good things is a total genius. And people who have this think they're just nice because they're the person that when you go to them and say, we have this new opportunity and so we need people to help us, they're the ones that go, I'm in. What do you need for me to do? And they help you on the terms that you need, not on their terms, right? They're the people that flex and love to help. They're the offensive lineman who says, man, I'm going to block whatever you need. And when the quarterback goes, that guy's blitzing, he's like, no problem. He doesn't go into the huddle and go, I want the ball. He says, I'll do whatever you need because they're like the consummate team players, but they doubt themselves. They don't think it's a genius. They think they're just easily convinced, but they're not. It's a gift. And so enablement is wonderful. The last genius, though, is critical, and that's tenacity. And those are people that don't just like to help or not necessarily help. They like to finish things. They're the one that says, no, I am going to dog this until it's across the finish line, it meets the standards, and if there's an obstacle, I will blow through it. They might not even like to help people. They just hate the idea of something not getting finished. So that's where it goes from 50,000 feet down to 5 feet, the person with tenacity. So those are the wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity. 2 are your working genius, where you get joy and energy. 2 are your working frustration. Totally drains you of joy and energy. The 2 in the middle you can do for a while, but you shouldn't spend all your time in those areas.
My 2 areas of working genius, discernment and tenacity. And the tenacity one's funny because it's interesting too, the difference in you and me in that regard, because I am the ultimate, like, I can't live without finishing the thing, whatever the thing I've made a commitment, like I just can't do it. I feel like I'm like lying or cheating or whatever it is. So that tenacity makes so much sense with the finisher, as you call it. Like you have to finish the thing or you just can't, you can't do anything else. And it was an eye-opening and enlightening kind of term to bring to life, because I'm like, oh, exactly. It makes so much sense.
You're what's called, by the way, there's 6 types. So that means there's 15 combos.
Yeah.
So your 2 geniuses put together, the D and the T, we call that the judicious accomplisher, which means is they have really good judgment about what needs to get done.
Yeah.
They can look at something and go, that's the most important thing. And then they will not rest until it gets done.
Yeah.
And they're all very wonderful, but that's a great practical, but also you're good at seeing the right strategy and then actually following through.
Yeah.
The difficulty for you is that your angst before it gets finished is very high.
Yes.
And so, and if you're working on a team with people and they're not pulling their weight, and it's right to make people pull their weight, but you can get really frustrated when people are not like, you're not living up to the right standards, which is a good thing to do to hold them accountable, but it's particularly annoying to your type, which is a great thing on a team. But you're like, dude, you better step up, because if this doesn't get done because you didn't help, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah. Well, I think as a quarterback, this made a lot of sense where, and it's funny you mentioned my brother. We talked about this when we recorded a podcast together, because we got to play together for 2 years in high school, the only 2 years on the same team. And I remember us, winning a lot and doing well. He played both ways. I played quarterback.
What high school did you go to?
Centerville High School in Ohio.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And I remember, he just said the thing I remember most was the fact that like not everybody loved you because you were very hard on people, very hard on guys if they didn't live up to the standard that you set for yourself, and you set the same standard for everybody else. And when they did not practice at that level and certainly play at that level, it wasn't pretty all the time. And I was like, that's a good point, because I don't really live like that anymore as much. I mean, with myself, but it's interesting.
Well, you round out the edges, but here's the deal. As a quarterback, your job was to lead them to win and to do well.
Right.
Now, the truth of the matter is, had you been the nicest guy in the world and they were sloppy and it didn't follow through into goodness on the field, they weren't going to lie. They might have kind of enjoyed you, but they wouldn't have respected you, and they would not have gotten a lot out of it. So the point there is, so you can round out the rough edges, but we have DTs, by the way, this is absolutely predictable, who work in our organization. And they say, do you want to dislike me because I dog you too much about this, or because I make you do this? Because one of those two things is going to happen. Can you choose your poison? And we laugh about it because they are tough on us. But you know something? We love it, because as a result, we do well. And knowing that that's your working genius, Ryan, you could go back in the old days and go, you guys, this is how God wired me. And if you want a quarterback who's going to make good decisions and push you, you're going to love working with me.
Right.
But if you want a guy who's going to do whatever you tell me to do and just encourage you, even if you're not working hard, that's not me.
Yeah. So you when you put two together and then you get their name. So what can you name your two and then what your name is?
Yes. So I'm an inventor discerner. So I'm good at coming up with new ideas and evaluating them. And I'm called the discriminating ideator. Discriminating, that's not discrimination, but discriminating, like I come up with new ideas, but I don't come up with a lot of really crazy ones. If I throw 5 ideas on the board, 4 of them are probably pretty close. And people are like, Ben, Pat, you're inventive, I have good friends. One of my best friends in the world, he's a WI, a wanderer inventor. He throws 10 ideas on the board and only 2 of them are good. And he knows it's like, I'm throwing crap against the wall. Let's see what sticks.
Yeah.
But when I'm coming up with an idea, and even when I'm writing my books, like you were asked about my character, I'm thinking, oh, I should make him this. Wait a second. And I'm correcting myself as I go because I have good discernment. So I'm the discriminating ideator. You can pick any other two types. My son, Matt, so one other guy in the room here, he's a wonder and discernment. So that means he's got his head in the cloud. He's always pondering things. He's noticing things. And wanderers are very deep. We don't even see it on the outside. They're like, stuff is going on in their mind that we don't even know about. They're just constantly, why is that the way it is? Why is that the way that is? They really are deep thinkers and a discerner. So he has good judgment, but he questions himself all the time. Landing on a like, if you ask him, he's what's called the what do we call it now? The contemplative counselor. They give you the best advice, but they're not going to stand up in front of 100 people and say, this is the right thing to do, and I'm sure of it. they're going to say, well, there's a few different ways to look at this. I've really thought this through. His advice is always fantastic, but he's never overselling it. In fact, he often undersells it because he's constantly wondering, well, maybe there's a different way to look at it. Well, maybe that's not exactly right. And it's crazy when we meet other people with the same type that we've never met before. They can talk to Matt and they're both like going, oh my gosh, isn't it crazy how we doubt ourselves and then we turn out to be right? So the contemplative counselor, every one of these combinations has a name.
Now that you have it's becoming a family business, there are so many of these out in the world. I'm sure a lot of them follow your work. Have you shifted to like being able to speak from firsthand experience about what it's like to work with family, and maybe you're giving counsel or advice or even being hired by these businesses that are kind of family operated?
Well, just 2 days ago, I was with a wonderful company. The CEO is the younger brother, and the founder and the main guy is the older brother. And they were like, yeah, we want to talk about that. And that's fun. But what I think is even better is that this applies to your family.
Yes.
Because like my wife and I just wrote an article about marriage, and the title was Marriage is a Lot of Work, which sounds kind of negative. Like it's a lot of work. No, what I mean is when you're married, you and your wife are spending most of your time co-working. You know, you're getting your kids to things, you're planning a vacation, you're maintaining the house, you're figuring out how you're going to pay for things, you're running the bills, you're doing all that. So you're working together. And so if you don't know what your working geniuses are, my wife and I, our marriage changed completely when we did this. Well, we have a good marriage, a really good marriage, but we would argue about the same things all the time. And it was because neither of us had tenacity. So my wife is a wanderer and an inventor. She's what's called the creative dreamer. Yet she was in charge of like paying the bills and making sure that things got done at home and raising the kids. And I did that too, but hers was a lot of the tenacity work. You have to finish it. She has no tenacity. I have no tenacity, but I get to be an author and a speaker. And I would come home and say, why did we get a late bill? Or why did they shut our power off? And she'd go, yeah, I forgot to follow through on that bill. I meant to do it. And we'd get frustrated at each other. And she'd go, why don't you do it? For years, she'd go, why don't you take over the finances then? And I'm like, because I'm working and I'm traveling. And she's like, when we figured out our working genius, I was like, I am so sorry. I should have had more grace. And she goes, hey, she said, I felt like I was supposed to be great at this. You know what we did a month ago, Ryan? We hired an outside person to become her accountability coach.
Oh.
She would have never done it when she saw her working genius and said, I don't have follow through. I don't have tenacity. Every day she talks to this woman and says, here are the 5 things I need to get done today. I'll talk to you at the end of the day. And the woman will say to her, why didn't you do that one? She goes, well, this is what happened. And the woman will say, no. So tomorrow you have to get that done. And Laura said it's changed her life. But before she knew what her geniuses were, you know what she thought she was? A failure.
Yeah.
Well, other women I know pay the bills on time and their house is always clean. And it's like, yeah, but they're not a creative dreamer and they don't come up with these new ideas. My wife has got these brilliant ideas and she's really deep and thoughtful, and she's going to help us figure out how to apply all this to marriage. So
I think that part of it's so critical. I know we've talked about this in family offline too, because like that's the point of doing all this, right? Is we want to make sure that we're better understanding. I think I read a quote recently about that when it comes to your partner is like, you almost have to fall in love with a person like 6 or 7 times because you grow and you evolve and things happen. And if you're not kind of on that same path where you're willing to do assessments, to learn about your working genius or to learn about what you're all about, that's when problems really arise, not having an open mind. And I think that's the realizing the strengths and realizing the gifts of your partner and not getting frustrated if, for example, like, well, I've said this before, Pat, and I'm definitely not proud of it, where I'm like, I would never do that when it comes to like maybe missing a bill or something. I've said that. I'm like,
you would be
thing to say.
Mortified.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. But saying a comment like that, like, how is that helpful? How is it helpful to say, like, I would never do that?
Right.
And I've done it, and I'm just like, oh man, it's because you're not one, not being kind, but also not understanding where that person is coming from, what they have on their plate, what they're doing, what their gifts are. And I think that's where I've personally messed up and have worked really hard to try to get better at over the years.
You know, there's a few things I want to say about this. I don't know how long your podcast can go on, but a week should just do a marathon. But Saint Francis of Assisi said, seek to understand more than to be understood.
Yep.
And so it's hard to love somebody if you don't understand them, because you have to really know what's going on. And when we don't understand people, what we do is we judge them.
Yep.
And so let me explain how we judge them. Like, and this could be at work or at home. Somebody doesn't do something well at work, and the judgment I might make, if I don't know their working genius and who they are, it's like, oh, they're kind of lazy, or they don't care as much as I do, or they're not very bright. Well, when you realize they're working genius, you go, oh, no, they care. They're not lazy. They don't have any tenacity. So they lose sight of it. Now, that's not an excuse, but it's an understanding of, I'm not going to make a character judgment of them. I'm going to realize that's not how they're wired.
Yep.
When things now happen in our home, because she's taking one for the team by doing things outside of her genius, and something goes wrong, I can literally smile and love her and go, thank you for doing tenacity stuff, because I'm not good at it. And I love you, my wondering, inventing wife. And it's totally, I can embrace her lack of tenacity because it makes her what she is. But if I'm judging her as being like, how could you let that happen? And it's like, well, I know how, because if I were in that, it'll probably in my case, it would have happened to me. Now, it wouldn't have happened to you, but there's other things she does that you wouldn't be able to do.
Oh,
the other thing is
way more.
Yeah. Let me tell you a story. I love this story. A guy wrote to us right after the assessment came out, and he said he and his wife took this on their anniversary together. And he said it changed their marriage. And I couldn't believe what he said. Remember this, Matt? And he said, I thought my wife hated me. And he laughed and he said, and I kind of joke about that, but no, I actually had this feeling that she was against me. And you know what? He goes, and now I know why. He was an inventor. He would come up with he'd come home and go, I have this new idea, honey. It's this great thing. And she would always critique it. Not criticize it, but critique it. And he thought she was like trying to pee on his parade, and they did the assessment. She goes, honey, I'm a discerner. My job, my genius is to look at an idea and evaluate it because I want it to work. So I'm just giving you the information that I think will allow your dream to become a reality. And he said, I thought she hated me. It was how she was loving me. Now that I know that, I mean, I could get emotional just thinking about this. He goes, we now realize it was all based in love. That's a deal breaker. That's a game changer. And sometimes it's just understanding how people are wired.
The same thing happens at work. I remember early on as a manager being frustrated if somebody didn't have the tenacity that I had, but they probably had other gifts and other skills that I also didn't have, but I couldn't see that. You become, again, judgmental. And I think the opposite of being judgmental is being curious. And when I was judging for not having the tenacity that I have, because I remember I actually said this quote, Pat, I'm 26, I'm a new manager, I have obviously no idea what I'm doing. And I told like a senior VP, I said, look, I just need 16 of me. Just need to hire 16 of me and we will crush it. It's super embarrassing to admit that, but again, we're being real here. And I did say that to a senior guy who probably looked at me and thought, we got to get rid of this guy, and but that's how I legitimately thought. This is also why I love the phrase learning leader, because you got to learn as you go and learn that sometimes you were stupid and you got to get better. But that was the issue, was like I literally thought that, and then I would get frustrated in the early days. That's why I wrote a book called Welcome to Management, because of so many welcome to management moments that I had and messed up, that
I
I
remember
needed.
early when I met you, you were talking about this. That was great.
And so I think that's the other part too at work is understanding their working genius and their gifts so that it leads to a whole lot less of frustration and more understanding as opposed to judgment, which is certainly what I did early in my career. And hope I'm not really doing it now, but I'm sure we're not perfect. So I think that's something to think about.
Well, a beautiful thing is when you can tell somebody, these are my working geniuses, when I get a little sideways, this is probably what you're going to see.
Yeah.
You know, I can say to people, I'm an ID, so I come up with new ideas. If I'm in a meeting and we're about to launch a program and I'm coming up with new ideas, tell me to be quiet. Say, we're not doing that right now. Every conversation requires certain letters, and launching something does not require invention and discernment. It requires enablement and tenacity. And this, by the way, for anybody listening to this, there's a really positive hard edge to this. What I mean by that is, so let's say you have somebody working for you and they're not finishing and you really need them to. And you do the working genius and you go, oh crap. You know something, Bill? I really need a finisher. I realize that's not you. I love you. I think you're a great guy. If I had another job for you in the organization that fit your genius, I would put you in it. In fact, when one comes up, I will. But I'm not rejecting you as a person. I'm telling you, I need a galvanizer and a tenacity person. And I know that's not you. And I don't want to make you be something you're not. And I don't want to frustrate you in your job. It turns that conversation. I had to let a guy go recently in a job, and he did not have tenacity. And it was preventing him from hitting his numbers. Mm-hmm. And I loved the guy. And praise be to God, somebody else is interested in him at another organization now. But I said to him, I need a T. I know you don't have that. We didn't realize that when we hired you. We don't want to beat you up for this. And it allowed him to go, I'm not a bad person. It just the gifts God gave me don't align with what you need. So it lets you have more dignity with people. So it's not to say, well, you just have to accept everybody as they are and make them work. Some jobs require this, and it's a better way to explain it. The other thing is when you hire, we really believe that you should say, like, we're hiring an assistant. I'm literally going to go out and interview a person to be our office manager right after this is over. She's here. And we sat down and said, which letters are pretty important? And which letters, if they're her weaknesses, would probably be a non-starter? Now, people would say, are you going to give her the assessment? No. You're not allowed to do that in some states. I don't know. But we're going to explain the model to her.
You're not? You can't do that?
I think that it's illegal to give somebody a written assessment, which is stupid because in this case, that assessment allows them not to take a job that's going to make them miserable.
Well, I was going to say, it feels like a pretty good idea to me. I thought that was going to be a big part of this.
Well, if we think that the legal community understands what's best for people, you know what I mean? There's so many laws that are like, but what we do is we just have the conversation about the working genius, and we go, we're looking for somebody who loves this and loves this, and probably can do a little of this and a little of this. How do you feel about that? Because here's the thing. If you take the job and we're expecting that from you, and you're looking at this list and you're like going, oh, that sounds miserable to me, it'd be better to opt out, because it should be a mutual fit that we're looking for. Yeah. And having this description gives people the confidence to go, yeah, I probably shouldn't take this job, because 2 weeks from now, I'll have to come to work and act that way. And that's just not who I am.
Can I ask you a question about reinvention? And I'll explain what I mean by that. So, and this is a little bit different, but I think it probably applies to some of the working genius because of what you're about. It's rare, really rare, I think, in this industry to be known for something like Five Dysfunctions. And then all of a sudden, you're known for the ideal team player. And then which is out there, humble, hungry, smart. And then all of a sudden you're known for the advantage, right? And there are plenty of other ones that are out there. And then before you know it, now we have the working genius, which might be the biggest thing that you'll ever do. That just doesn't happen, right? Normally you kind of get your thing and you might ride that for the rest of your career and live off of that. But it feels like you have regularly reinvented yourself, what you're about, what you provide to the world, your business. I mean, how are you able to kind of to do this? Usually, like, okay, this is a leadership guy, right? And I love John Maxwell, but he's kind of like the same thing for like 4 or 5 decades, you know. So I'm curious how you've been able to reinvent yourself and create new, different stuff as you've gone.
And I think a lot of it is that I can't help doing it.
Yeah.
I can't help it. And just to make sure people understand this, my first job out of school, I wasn't an abject failure, but I failed. Okay. In other words, I didn't get fired after 3 weeks or something like that. I lasted for 2 years of misery in a job that many people stayed for 2 years. It was at Bain & Company as a management consultant. And I was not at the top of my class. I didn't like it. I struggled in it. And I looked back and I realized what they wanted was the 2 things I hate the most in Working Genius. They wanted me to just do whatever they told me without questioning it, like no discernment. Just do it because we told you and finish it perfectly. Make sure there's no mistakes. Remember, precision and doing things on somebody else's terms without, they didn't want any of my I and any of my D. Well, it wasn't until I put myself in a role where I got to do that every day. And you know what I did? I was very blessed in this. My dad, God rest his soul, said, Pat, when I started my own company, he said, don't hire anybody else because you won't be able to pay them yet. Make sure you get revenue before you can. And I said, Dad, I'll never get any revenue if I don't have people around me who do the stuff I suck at. So once I put myself in a position where I surrounded myself with people who were good at things I wasn't, and I allowed myself to live in my geniuses, it started happening. And so I am blessed to be able to use the gifts God gave me in a way that I enjoy, and good things are happening. I do not think for 1 second that it's because I powered through or the force of will. It is a gift and a blessing. And I mean that's not false modesty. It's like, I don't take any of this on like I am special. I was fortunate and blessed to do things I love to do. And it's helping other people, and praise God for that. I don't think anything else other than that. And everybody's got gifts. And it's like what you're doing, you know, you get to use your discernment, but then you're like getting things done.
Yeah.
And so we get gifts, and I hope everybody gets to, that's why we're doing this. We want every single person in the world to know their gifts. Nobody should spend their life. I don't care if they're a senior in high school or if they're retiring or if they're in the middle of their career. Nobody should go through life doing things that make them miserable. God didn't intend for that.
Man, the 6 types of Working Genius. Look at this thing. It's pretty sweet. I highly recommend it. The better way to understand your gifts, your frustrations, and your team. And it's a fable. I think people who like your other stuff will love this. And a fun, fast read. And then the cool thing is you could implement it immediately wherever you are, at home, at work. I think it applies. It's good to have these conversations with people you work with and people you live with, because then they can better understand, okay, this is how you can approach people more with curiosity and less with judgment when you have an understanding of their Working Genius and what they're all about. It's beyond a personality test. It's more about like what we're actually doing each day.
Yes. And I think that's the most important thing. Do it and talk to somebody about it.
Yeah.
It's so liberating. And people are going to go, oh my gosh, now I understand you. No wonder you succeeded in that. No wonder you hated that. And it takes off any guilt and judgment. And it frees people up to say, oh, I failed in my first job in those two years. I carried that around with me for years. You know what it's like to actually look at that and go, oh, now I know I was destined to fail. I thought I was lazy and stupid. It's like, wait, I'd never been lazy and stupid until then. I just took a job doing something I was bad at. Yep. So, hey, so I love talking to you about this stuff.
I love it, man. I love all of our conversations. I'm super grateful for you as a friend and certainly a mentor. Thanks again, man. I want to publicly say that, and I'm happy the fact that we'll obviously be continuing our dialogue as we both progress, man.
All righty. Well, the best to you and your family, and I appreciate being on here. God bless you, buddy.